they don't go to the north where I live or to the east. And the same applies to the UK market. However, the Germans, who usually come only during the summer, they stay in the countryside. So they are a completely different market, and they are very important for the countryside. But the downside is that they only come during summer. The US and UK market, they come to Iceland all year round. So each market has their special things that are important, and it matters where you stand, what market is important. So if you go a little bit towards tourism and rural development, one of the things that is special about Iceland in a way is the uneven population distribution. Bulk of the population is living in the capital region. It's actually more than 70%. The rest is scattered around the coastline in small villages. So in a sense, Iceland is very rural beside this capital region. And that is a challenge in terms of infrastructure development and many other things. So this is Iceland, and you can see the population centers, also the red dots around the country. And some are small, very small, so we are talking about maybe 100, 200 people living there. But what I wanted to point out is the red thread that goes like a circle around the country. I don't have a pointer, but you can see it. This is the ring road, road number 1. And the reason I mention it is because this road was completed as a ring road 1974. Then the last bridges were opened and people could drive around the country. It was not until 1974 that we were able to do that. And that changed quite a bit, and that affected tourism development also quite a bit, because the decade after the ring road opened, a lot of hotels were built up around the ring road. So tourism development were focused quite a bit on this road, which meant that areas that were further away were struggling. But in recent years, there's been an emphasis on the behalf of the government, for example, that has encouraged more product development and cluster cooperation in those rural areas, so they are able to come together with a stronger image and stronger identity and create kind of a draw to make people go off the ring road and to so they are getting more and more successful in attracting tourists. But it's not an easy thing though. So like well, everywhere else, I guess here and in many rural areas, there have been great expectation towards tourism in rural areas, both by the municipalities, the municipal authorities, and also individuals. People see tourism as a way to replace declining industries like fisheries and agriculture. And as I mentioned, there have been various development schemes in recent decades, some more successful than others. There have been emphasis on cluster projects, for example, in terms of food tourism, in terms of cultural tourism, that is focusing on local history, local characters, something that has to do with, you could say, a little bit more authentic part of the community. But like also elsewhere, rural tourism in Iceland is very much characterized by lifestyle entrepreneurs. And that means people who are in the business not necessarily because they are business people. They are in the business because the business provides an opportunity for them to stay where they want to stay, to live where they want to live, and to do what they want to do. So it's often like hobby-related thing. It can be a horse farming, so they offer horse rental. It can be kayaking, it can be cross-country skiing, and so forth. And so that means that many of those people are not necessarily focusing on growth or the profits. It's just they want something that enables them to stay where they want to stay. And I, in a research that I did a couple of 3 or 4 years back in very rural communities, in those communities that are far away from the ring road, there was a common thread that the entrepreneurs that I spoke to, they all talked a lot about how tourism was a venue for different encounters. They valued the social aspect of it, and nobody mentioned the economical aspect. But it was this chance to meet new people, to hear stories, to tell stories, to reinforce their identity, to realize that they were interesting, that their community was interesting. So tourism has a way to strengthen the self-identity, not only of the tourism providers, but also of the whole community. Because it's a lot of difference to belong to a community that is always focused upon as a community in decline, that people are always moving away, nobody wants to live there, then all of a sudden become in the spotlight of tourism, where people are interested in what you have and want to come and see what you are doing and find your culture interesting. So that's one of the great things about tourism. It enhances the identity of people in rural areas. But what they all talked about is that it was much more demanding to be in tourism than they ever had thought. For example, they all talked about the long hours, they all talked about the commitment. You don't go away, it's a 7-day-a-week, around-the-clock commitment. And they also talked about that there were so few people, so they were doing many jobs at once. They were the manager, they were cleaning, they were marketing people, they were just everything. And that meant that they had limited time and limited energy to engage in maybe, you know, what the government was demanding of them, to participate in product development schemes or things like that. Just to go to a meeting was very difficult. And they felt also that there was a lot of pressure on them to grow, but they didn't want to grow. So we have a little bit of a tension between what the government or the municipality wants them to do and what they want to do themselves. But they had a strong desire to be able to stay in control. They wanted not to be that large that they had to hire a lot of people, because then they said, then I lose the control over my product. I want to be, I am the part of the product. So if I am just a boss, then it's not the same. And what has happened in the last 3 years is that we lost control in Iceland of the tourism growth, not only in the rural areas, but mostly in the capital region. And this is the graph we all know very well in Iceland now. And you can see it's a steep increase, very steep increase in number of foreign tourists arriving to Iceland. It has been around 30% increase in the last years, and January to April this year, it's 40% increase from last year. So the growth, it's still going on. And here are just few indicators of that. So you can see that in numbers there's been 270% increase since 2011, and the number of companies have also from 2,600 to 3,600 5 years later. And you can see also the increase between years. And what we have been successful in Iceland is that we have been able to battle the seasonality of tourism. So now there is in South Iceland and in the capital region, there is almost no seasonality. Of course, most people come during the summer, but now the winter is really, really booming. And a lot of people stay open all year round, and they just have a lot to do. And some of the attractions, like some of the most popular waterfalls in the south of Iceland, are as busy in February as they were in July 5 years ago. So they're the same numbers. And this, of course, has led to an increased pressure, because tourism changes the landscape. It has the ability to change nature, because tourism is about a lot of people traveling, going into places that nobody maybe went before, and that affects nature. And nature in Iceland is sensitive. It's a fragile nature, because we have this volcanic landscape, and it's very sensitive. But it also has the ability to change the community, change the culture, change the identity, change the interaction of people. And what we need to also always bear in mind that each place is unique. So we interact in a unique way with other external affairs like tourism. And we are realizing that it is very important to understand better how residents experience tourism in each place. Up till like 3 years ago, everybody in Iceland was really, really positive towards tourism, and all we talked about was that we wanted more tourists to come to Iceland, because we saw this was a way out of the financial crisis. And this is also has been a really, as I said, all the rural communities wanted tourism, and communities that were not as successful as others in attracting tourists, they felt a little bit out of the loop. They felt they were not in the party, so to speak. But as tourism increases, and as the numbers increases, then this gets more complicated. So I'm just going to touch upon results of a recent study that we did at the Research Center in 3 rural places, and they are located where the red dots are on the map. Those places are in a different time scale regarding tourism development. The one on the top is the youngest. It's a small fishing community that was very, very isolated until 5 years ago when the tunnel was built. Then all of a sudden it was accessible all year round. Before that, it was pretty much isolated during wintertime. So it changed a lot. And an entrepreneur who is from this village, which is called Sigrafjörður, brought a lot of money towards his old village and built up hotels, restaurants, and all kinds of tourism facilities. And now it's a thriving tourism destination. The one in the middle, in middle of the north, it's a resort that is around Lake Niva, which is a very, very popular tourism destination because of geology, because of bird life, and other things. And this has been a popular destination for 50 years. So this is one of the biggest magnets outside Reykjavik. And then in the southeast, the bottom of the map, there is a destination that has become really popular during winter time. So all of a sudden they experienced a huge increase in winter tourism. They are located close to the largest glacier in Iceland, in Europe, in fact. So they are experiencing a lot of winter tourism. So we asked a lot of questions, and I'm just going to touch up on a few of them. One question was, what do you think about the number of tourists during the summer? And as you can see, there are varied opinions. The one in the youngest destination, that is where they recently had the tunnel, they say that the tourists are there in adequate numbers. However, the one where by the lake, Mývatns Lake, they feel like there are far too many during the summertime. And in the last one, they are more divided opinions. The bottom line, the grey line, is results from a national survey that was done the year before, 2014. This was done in 2015. And there are, in many incidences, very different results from this national survey, and then when we come closer and look closer towards the communities. And we also wanted to know if what they felt if the service was more directed at tourists than residents. And in where the lake is, they tend to feel that more than the other communities. And it's the same. They also feel like tourists disturb their daily life much more than, for example, in the young destination. So it's quite a difference there. However, when we ask about if tourism has had a positive effect, then even the community that has been negative, has shown negative answers so far, they feel though that tourism has had a positive effect on living conditions in the region. However, the one in the south, close to the glacier, there are very, very divided opinions, and that may be because, as you can